Hello, friends, and welcome back. This lesson is going to talk about symptoms of pelvic floor dysfunction. Before we jump into the symptoms, I just want to do a quick review of the pelvic floor muscles. So healthy pelvic floor muscles do the right thing at the right time. They correctly contract to help control pee and poop. They completely let go to let pee, poop, and gas come out. They're active at the right time. So when we're exercising and engaged and moving, we need them to be active. And then they're relaxed at the right time. So like when we're on the toilet, we need them to relax so that things come out. All right, so some of the symptoms of pelvic floor dysfunction. Let's talk about the bladder. So bladder leaking, bladder urgency, bladder frequency. So let's talk about those three things to start off with. Bladder leaking. So many times people think, oh, I had a baby, or I'm getting older, or my mom had a weak bladder, my grandma had a weak bladder, so it's just genetic. And they kind of expect that leaking is part of the normal process. I'm here to tell you that that is not how our bodies are designed to work. Our bodies are designed to work to keep urine in at the right times and to let urine out at the right times. And even if you're leaking a few drops, that's a sign that something isn't functioning quite right. There's a warning sign. Does that mean it's the end of the world and that you're going to automatically end up in diapers? No, but I would say it's a warning sign, okay? And so frequently what we see is this progression where there's a few drops of urine and then you start wearing a panty liner just in case, and then the panty liner turns into a mini pad, and the mini pad turns into a maxi pad. The maxi pad turns into, protective undergarments, and then ultimately diapers could be the final scenario. So listen to your bodies. Leaking is not how our bodies are designed to work. That being said, if you have leaking and you've gone through all kinds of therapy and you've done everything that you know to do and you're still leaking, don't let leaking prevent you from living life, okay? There's ways that you can leak and still be confident and still be active. This course isn't focusing on that. This course is focusing on how to prevent leaking, how to stop leaking, what to do if you are leaking. Okay, so leaking is a warning sign. Number two, let's talk about urinary urgency. So that urgency, when you feel the urge to go to the bathroom, you should be able to hold it 20 or 30 minutes. Like get to a bathroom, get to a point where it's comfortable for you. So if you have very little warning sign, like you feel the urge to go and then you've just got to run to the toilet, that is a sign of urinary urgency. So again, does that mean it's the end of the world? No, but the more you give into that urgency, the more it could potentially rule your life. I see patients in the clinic. It's so sad. Like they might be going to the bathroom 2 and 3 times an hour. What kind of quality of life is that? How can you work? How can you go to a movie? How can you go to dinner? How can you go on a trip? That's a huge impact on quality of life to have to go pee every 2 or 3 times an hour. So urinary urgency, the habits, the more you do them, the more that neural pathway gets ingrained, the deeper the groove and the stronger that urge is going to be. All right, then we have urinary frequency. So what does that look like? Again, the person that's coming in and is going, to the bathroom every 2 or 3 hours, 2 or 3 times an hour. That is definitely urinary frequency. The general goal should be 2 to 4 hours between trips to the bathroom during the day. So not under 2 hours, but not over 4 hours, because you can have problems on either side. Is it the end of the world if occasionally you go at an hour, hour and a half, or 5 hours? No, it's not the end of the world, but it's those habits that make us, okay? So every 2 to 4 hours during the day, and then at night, 0 to 1 times a night. So if you're getting up 1 time a night, it's not a big deal. I'm working with people that are going 8 and 10 times a night. Like, what kind of quality of sleep are they getting, right? It's bad sleep. They're not rested. It's bad quality of life. So looking at that every 2 to 4 hours, that should be a general target. And we have a lot of resources on that. In fact, I'll attach like a happy bladder resource here in the handouts. All right, so that's bladder. Before we finish up bladder, there can be other bladder problems. There can be overactive bladder, there can be painful bladder, you can have difficulty urinating, you can have stop and start urine stream, you can feel like you have to strain to urinate, you can feel like you have to incomplete emptying, you can have frequent urinary tract infections. So there's a whole lot of other things that can happen with the bladder that a lot of times also involve the pelvic floor muscles. So if you're functioning well and you're going every 2 to 4 hours and you can hold it until it's a convenient time and place and you're not having any pain, then you're probably doing okay. But if you're having any of those symptoms and going back to that APFQ, that questionnaire, then you might have some pelvic floor dysfunction. Bowel problems is very similar, except in terms of frequency. So if you are leaking poop, even if it's just a little leak, if you're like streaks in the underwear, if you are leaking gas is coming out, well, you didn't mean for it to. Those are signs of pelvic floor muscle dysfunction. And then also constipation or painful pooping. Those are also signs. So what does it look like to have normal? What does normal look like for bowels? Again, when you feel that urge, you should be able to wait until it's a convenient time and place for you to go to the bathroom. If your bowels are ruling you and you're like, I have to be within 5 minutes of a toilet wherever I am, then that's a sign that there's something going on. And you probably already know that if you have that symptom. Generally, constipation. So I like for my patients to poop once a day, with at least once a day, with the poop being like a soft, squishy banana. The actual criteria say that up to like 3 times a week is still considered to be normal, 3 times a day to 3 times a week. But I think 3 times a week isn't enough. So I like to see people poop at least once a day, if not twice a day, morning and night, whatever works for you. Finding a time in your day that you poop is very important for bowel health, and poop should not be painful. You shouldn't have to strain. Ideally, you're not having to use your finger to help push up and evacuate. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but there's lots of things that go into healthy bowels. So if you're having any of those symptoms, whether it be difficulty controlling or difficulty going with your bladder or your bowels, those are signs of pelvic floor dysfunction. Pelvic pain. Okay, so pelvic pain is defined as any pain between the waist and the hips, okay? Or actually, I think it might be the knees. So basically this whole area. So if you're having pain in this whole area here, you have some kind of pelvic pain. And frequently the pelvic floor muscles are involved, even if it's pain over here in the hip or pain in the lower belly. A lot of times those pelvic floor muscles are also involved. And that can affect so many things. That affects bowel, that affects bladder, that affects movement and function, that affects insertion, that affects sex, that affects orgasms. So pelvic pain is a sign, hey, something isn't functioning the way that we need it to, and let's get it checked out. And then other concerns with sex might be difficulty achieving an orgasm, not being able to achieve an orgasm, painful orgasms, and then like I said, like with insertion, difficulty, with males, premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunction. These are all signs and symptoms that the pelvic floor muscles are frequently involved in. And then this one would be pressure or bulging. These are key signs of pelvic organ prolapse. So pelvic organ prolapse, remember we have our nice pelvic floor muscles that help to support. Pelvic organ prolapse is when those organs start to descend into the vaginal canal, and there's different grades and there's different organs that can be involved, but a vaginal bulge or pelvic pressure are 2 key signs of pelvic organ prolapse, and likely the pelvic floor muscles are involved. So I hope that was a helpful overview of some of the symptoms that can happen with pelvic floor dysfunction. It's not an all-inclusive list, but I think we covered most key areas. If you have any questions, drop them below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.